Foul beyond reasoning and old beyond reckoning, half-crazed shadows cackle madly in the mist-shrouded night. Lurking in the rank, wild places even the bravest fear to tread. Nightmare crones haunt the legends of every culture and hint at the corruption that festers deep within each mortal soul. Cunning predators, vengeful adversaries, and warped reflections of the civilized races. These monstrosities are known as hags. For as long as there have been tales to tell, there have been whispered warnings of hags, from legends of cruel yet wise seers prowling the fringes of civilization, to cautionary tales of cursed, hate-filled creatures in the form of haggardly crones. Hags haunt the mythology and folk stories of nearly every people. But what is the truth to these tales? Are these hideous creatures truly as abominable as their exterior indicates? Or are hags more than cruel, malicious monsters? Is a hag fae, fiend, or friend? And is that mysterious woman of the wood on the farthest outskirts of town merely the wizened old woman she seems? Some tales say she is a kind fairy, others a dreadful witch, and even others a goddess in disguise. Today we will discover if hags are truly horrible witches of wicked intent and ancient origin. Dark fae tied to primal forces whose foul magic and mysterious malevolence haunt fairy tales and nightmares alike. I am Omar Timsaw.
I am William Stark.
And this is D&D Legends and Lore. Before we begin, we'd like to give a special shout out to those supporting us on Patreon. We truly appreciate all who take time out of their day to delve into the lore of the world's most popular TTRPG with us. But in particular, the direct support of our generous patrons are what keeps the lights on and morale high in Will's writing cave, and gets us one step closer to our ultimate goal of bringing you more episodes on a consistent basis. Links to Patreon and YouTube memberships, as well as our socials, are below for any that are interested. And now, let's take a look at just what exactly makes a hag.
In the deep forests around Lake Sember, west of the Vale of Lost Voices, a coven of hags once lived, spreading their evil works throughout Mistledale, Tilverton, and Deepingdale. This coven consisted of three: an Annis hag named Vexia, whose gnarled muscles and jutting bones comprised her hulking frame, a green hag named Thessingthorn, who was moldy and green with a tangled mane of vine-like hair, and a sea hag named Magalrak, who was haggard and oozing and preferred to dwell in the secluded forest lake. Together the three sowed anguish and brought tragedy to all who crossed them, and Semberholm was wrought with curses and calamities abound. And though the coven was responsible for much of the evil abounding in the area, all was not well within the coven itself, for the group was torn by internal strife.
Hags are crones who represent corruption of ideals and goals, and they delight in seeing the innocent and good brought low. They are inhuman monsters, their forms twisted by evil. Shape-changers and blasphemers, they ally with other hags to form magical covens with extra powers. They collect and remember secret knowledge that is better lost and forgotten. And desperate mortals come to them looking for advice, only to have their requests fulfilled in ways that bring great suffering to themselves and their loved ones. Hags are mysterious, unfathomable, and dangerous, especially from the viewpoint of mortals. One day a hag might be stealing and eating children that wander into the woods. On another day she might be making lewd jokes to adventurers asking her for advice. And the next she might be uprooting saplings to make a fence around her home for impaling intruders. It is nearly impossible to predict how a hag will act from day to day, sometimes moment to moment, which is why folk with any wisdom at all give hags a wide berth. Hags are virtually immortal, with a lifespan greater than that of even dragons and elves. The oldest, wisest, and most powerful hags are called grandmothers by other hags. Some grandmothers are nearly as powerful as some of the archfey. Hags of lower but still respectable status are called aunties. An auntie gains her status from being very old, a member of a powerful coven, directly serving a grandmother, or having many offspring. Hags come in a bewildering variety, each tied to nature or some ancient force. They share certain traits, such as having withered, hideous female forms. Their withered faces are framed by long, frayed hair. Horrid moles and warts dot their blotchy skin, and their long, skinny fingers are tipped by claws that can slice open flesh with a touch. Their simple clothes are always tattered and filthy. Hags also share the ability to disguise their true shapes magically. Most can adopt the appearance of an old woman of any humanoid race, and some can assume comely guises. Hags perceive ugliness as beauty and vice versa. They revel in having a hideous appearance, and sometimes go out of their way to improve upon it by picking at sores, wearing skins and bones as decoration, and rubbing refuse and dirt into their hair and clothing. Hags love the macabre and festoon their garb with dead things and accentuate their appearance with bones, bits of flesh, and filth. This embrace of the disturbing and unpleasant extends to all aspects of a hag's life. A hag might fly in a magical giant's skull, landing it on a tree shaped to resemble an enormous headless body. Another might travel with a menagerie of monsters kept in cages and disguised by illusions to lure unwary creatures close. Hags sharpen their teeth on millstones and spin cloth from the intestines of their victims, reacting with glee to the horror their actions invoke. Tales tell of hags coming into being through various weird means, being birthed after a hag unites with an ensorcelled man, springing from cows that give venom instead of milk, hatching from snake eggs kissed by virgins, incubating in the coffins of the unconsecrated dead, a hag transforming a cursed baby into another hag, and being poured whole out of cauldrons of boiling blood. Perhaps the most common tale of hag reproduction is the most horrific of all. It is said that hags make more hags by snatching and devouring human infants, birthing daughters who turn into hags on entering the 13th year of their lives. Fortunately for humanity and the rest of the world, such an occurrence is rare. Rarer still, but not unheard of, is for a hag to repeat this process twice or more in short succession, giving her multiple offspring of about the same age. She might do this to form a coven with two of her daughters, or to create a coven made up entirely of her offspring. Some hags cite ancient lore that suggests that if a hag consumes twins or triplets, her offspring might have additional, unusual abilities. Similarly, devouring the seventh-born child of a seventh-born is said to be a way to pass on rare magic to the hag's daughter. All hags possess magical powers, and some have an affinity for spellcasting. They can alter their forms or curse their foes, and their arrogance inspires them to view their magic as a challenge to the magic of the gods, whom they blaspheme at every opportunity. Hags name themselves in darkly whimsical ways, claiming monikers such as Black Morwen, Peggy Pigknuckle, Grandmother Titchwillow, Nana Shug, Rotten Ethel, or Auntie Wormtooth.
The three hags spent most of their time squabbling and bickering among themselves. In most of their quarrels, Vexia, the Annis hag, would end up the victor, for she was the most powerful and cunning of the three, or so she thought. Such was her arrogance that Vexia had come to call the coven her coven, and she forced her leadership upon the other two. After one of their more horrendous disagreements, Thessingthorn and Magelrack's resentment of Vexia's selfish and boastful nature came to a head. Enough was enough. The two began to plot against the one, deciding to put an end to Vexia's tyranny permanently. Together they devised a plan to strip Vexia of her powers afforded her as an Annis hag, and to expel her from the coven. but to do so, they would need some help. They invited Hoopshay, a sister green hag of Thessingthorn, to come down from the forests of the north and replace Vexia. Using her magic to change her form, Magorak the sea hag took on the form of a handsome human man and lured Vexia into a frustrating chase. Magorak stayed just out of reach of Vexia's talons until they reached a body of water where the young man mysteriously disappeared. After being taunted in this way several times, Vexia went to Thessingthorn and demanded that she devise a way for Vexia to capture this elusive man. It was thus that Thessingthorn presented Vexia with a magical potion and instructed her to drink it when she was within sight of the man, for it would give her power to lure him to her. Vexia, so assured of her status as Coven leader and so anxious to claim her prey, trusted Thessingthorn completely.
Ancient and cunning, hags are wrathful, greedy, deceptive, and cruel. Despite these characteristics, hags can be bargained with if one has the courage to attempt doing so. Hag schemes are patient, their webs of manipulation wide, and their lives long. They can afford to talk a little. Besides, the generosity of hags has felled far more heroes than their claws. Hags delight in corrupting others. They do so not by imposing their will or being outwardly violent, but by making sinister bargains with those who seek their aid. This desire to orchestrate the downfall of others is why so many hags make their homes near humanoid settlements, which gives them a ready supply of creatures to tantalize and torment. Folks with nowhere else to turn are some of a hag's best customers. A farmer with a philandering spouse might seek out the local hag for a potion to make the spouse faithful again. The mayor with a demented father might ask the hag for something that makes him lucid again. A merchant whose child is deathly ill might go to the hag for a cure. The common element in these situations is that the mortals approach the hag for help. Despite knowing that she is evil and dangerous, they are desperate enough to risk making a bargain with her, or foolish enough to think they can persuade her to be helpful without getting something in return. Hags make bargains differently from how devils operate. A devil might approach a mortal to make a deal because it wants the individual to become tainted with evil, so that when the victim dies, its soul goes to the 9 hells. Instead of being interested in a mortal soul, a hag wants to bring the mortal low during its life as compensation for fulfilling her end of the bargain. Devils barter with the soul as the commodity. Hags barter because they enjoy making people miserable. As much as she enjoys offering and enforcing her bargains, a hag rarely goes out looking for people to make deals with, because she knows that someone coming to her puts her in a position of power. The visitor likely had to approach the hag in secret for fear of causing an uproar in the town, and is probably eager to return home before being missed, which adds time pressure to the process and tips the balance more in the hag's favor. All these factors contribute to the hag's being able to set her terms for the bargain, presenting an offer that appears reasonable and perhaps seems to have a tempting loophole or two that the mortal could exploit. Hags understand mortal desires and vices and know how to manipulate people by preying on those qualities. A hag's bargain might bring success and prosperity for a time, but eventually have a drawback or side effect that makes the mortal resent the agreement and seek to get out of it. The philandering spouse, now happy to stay home, might grow slothful. The mayor's father might turn violent after regaining his senses. And the merchant's child might relapse if not treated again every few months. Even when a bargain turns sour for a mortal and other people in town hear about or see the person's misfortune, the hag will eventually attract new customers. Other people will come to believe that they can outsmart the hag, or that their need is simple and can't be perverted, or that the earlier victims got too greedy when they were proposing a deal. Even if only 1 or 2 people make deals with the hag every year, over time many unfortunates can come under her sway, and she remembers the exact terms of every one of those bargains. Although it could be argued that there's no good time to make a bargain with a hag, mortals are more likely to get away in good shape if they offer up something a hag needs or wants. In such a case, the hag might even start the bidding. Hags are curious about other creatures of power. They enjoy receiving news and gossip about other hags and influential creatures, such as dragons, demons, genies, and certain mortals. Offering a hag accurate information of this sort as part of a bargain earns a small measure of her respect, and might make her more receptive to the idea of a fair deal. When a hag bargains with other creatures of the Feywild, rather than mortals, she approaches the situation with a more respectful attitude. She realizes that the creatures of her native realm are more powerful than common humanoids, and therefore more dangerous when disappointed or angered by a deal gone bad. Fae are also long-lived and thus have more time to retaliate against the hag, whereas most humanoids die within a few short decades. These considerations don't mean that hags are automatically pleasant in dealings with other Fae, just that they aren't as blatant or demanding in the bargains they offer. Hags know exactly how much they can get away with, and they like pushing the limits of what others will tolerate. When a hag is generous with her help or requires only a simple task as payment, that's no guarantee that the deal will turn out as expected for both parties. By offering a proposal that seems or actually is fair, chances are that the hag is pursuing a hidden agenda. She still wants to set events into motion that benefits her or brings about the downfall of another, but she does so in an indirect way that has no obvious connection to her. A bargain as simple as a villager agreeing to deliver a mysterious letter at a crossroads at noon on a certain day could be the key to ruining the mortal's life. The hag's reasons might not become apparent for years or even decades, or won't be meaningful except under specific circumstances, such as an auspicious birth or a climactic encounter with a dangerous villain. Even when she's offering a deal that seems to have no downside, a hag is always secretive about her motivations, the reasons for the payment she requires, or how these things benefit her. A hag that spends a long time in close proximity to a human settlement often depletes the community of good-hearted folk as they succumb to her evil and selfish plans. The mood of the town becomes unwelcoming, grim, moody, or outright hostile towards newcomers and travelers. Even after a hag has done her worst in such a place, she maintains leverage over her victims by holding out the prospect that someday she will undo the curses that she has lain upon them. For that reason, the local leaders won't allow any outsiders to act against her, which includes sabotaging adventurers who might decide to confront her. Over the course of a seemingly endless lifetime, a hag typically discovers or creates several unusual ways to use magic. The weird magic that hags can call upon comes in a number of forms and with various means of activation. Even those who have read scholarly books about hag lore can't predict what a particular hag might have up her sleeve. A grandmother or some other hag of great age and renown might know unique rituals that can temporarily or permanently alter or transform a creature, bring back the dead for a limited time, rewrite memories, or siphon emotions. At the other end of the spectrum, even a hag without lofty status is likely to have strange, single-use items that don't emulate common spells, or even follow the normal rules of magic. A hag carefully shepherds her use of weird magic, because the items in her repertoire are often impossible to duplicate or replace. If a hag is faced with mortal peril, all thoughts of conserving her resources vanish. She will use any weird magic at her disposal if it helps her stay alive. After all, a hag that's not dead has a virtually limitless lifetime to replace what was spent. No matter how hard it was to acquire that jar of death slugs, or that book on how to invoke the razor wind, or the runestone containing the 3 syllables for crystallizing blood, it is better to use such things than to risk death by not doing so. Many stories tell of hags using strange, enchanted creatures and objects for travel, and most of those stories are accurate. Instead of using the usual horse or pony, a hag might ride astride a giant pig, a goat, or a cow. It's not unknown for a hag to use a sentient creature as a mount, perhaps as the result of a bargain that creature struck with her. A hag that wants to humiliate a mortal hero might require that hero to serve as her mount for a year as part of fulfilling her bargain. The giant raven that carries a hag aloft could in actuality be one of the hag's victims transformed because that individual tried to go back on its deal with her. Some hags prefer non-living conveyances from time to time, and their imagination in this regard knows no bounds. A hag might happily animate and spruce up any sort of object she can tailor for the purpose, such as a clay statue, a huge woven basket, a cauldron, a butter churn, a giant bird's nest, a mortar and pestle, or a tombstone. Usually, only the hag that obtained or created them can use her mounts and vehicles. They obey only her commands, and their magic responds only to her will. If a hag allows any other creature to use one of them as part of a bargain, she must be expecting an immense return on her investment. Although they are, generally speaking, solitary by nature, hags sometimes feel the need for companionship. Usually, one scratches this itch by acquiring servants she can insult and slap around as she wishes. Such a creature might be charmed into compliance, or under a spell that stops its heart if it disobeys, or too afraid of non-magical punishment for failure to do what she says. Most hags have some kind of slave or minion creature living with or near them as a defense against attackers, even if it's just a common animal. Hags particularly delight in using mortals bound to their service as minions. A paladin might have no qualms about putting a hag coven to the sword, but her conviction falters if she must first fight through a crowd of innocent farmers that the hag is compelled to defend her. Ordinary folk are also useful as minions because they can serve the hag as her eyes and ears in a nearby settlement, either operating secretly or actively trying to persuade other townsfolk to pay her a visit. The weird magic at a hag's disposal means that she might have almost any type of creature helping or serving her: fae, giant, undead, and so on. Even a creature much more powerful than she might be under her command, working off the debt of a bargain for itself or someone else. Favors beget favors, and under duress a hag might speak a magic word to call upon a blood debt from a dragon, a noble, or another hag, making her able to wield magical, political, or physical power in a way that she can't do by herself. Like the land near a hag's lair, over time her minions are altered by her presence, becoming twisted versions of their former selves, in a dark fae sort of way, but still recognizable as what they once were. She might alter them with magic, making them tireless, resistant to fire, able to transform into a flock of crows, or able to teleport through shadows. Whatever the hag thinks best defends or serves her.
The time had finally come. Vexia came upon her quarry. With the man in her sights, the Annis hag immediately downed the potion given to her by her Coven sister and was changed into the form of a beautiful nymph. The man froze in his tracks as he caught sight of her. Vexia, cunningly falling into the role of enticing nymph, invited him to sit close and speak with her. She watched with great anticipation as the man came to her, and when he was finally within arm's reach, she reached out and grabbed him with a shout of triumph. But with a victory cry of her own, Magelrak shifted to her natural hideous form and pulled away from Vexia's now weakened grip. Shocked and furious, Vexia began to threaten and castigate Magelrak for her deception. But when Thessingthorn appeared along with her sister Hoopshay, Vexia's shouts transformed from those of rage to terror. They took Vexia to the Black Glen where the Coven would meet to do evil, and cursed her. In vain, Vexia tried to restore herself to her Annis hag form, but she found that Thessingthorn's potion had taken away almost all of her powers. In the Black Glen, Thessingthorn, Hoopshay, and Magelrak formed their own coven and banished Vexia from their territory. Vexia was forced to retain the form of the most disgusting thing that existed in the eyes of hags, a nymph.
Hags are selfish by nature, and each one cherishes her independence. from the rest of the world as well as from other hags. At the same time, every hag recognizes she and her sisters are kindred souls, like the members of a dark sorority or sisterhood. Even though hags don't like each other, they share knowledge and trade secrets, helping them to keep abreast of worldly events and possible dangers. Even a hag living in a remote, isolated location is aware of goings-on that involve her neighboring hags, whether through magical communication, personal visits, or mundane messengers such as birds. In most cases, these relationships with her sisters, though devoid of emotion, are the closest a hag comes to having friends. When a hag is attacked or killed, other hags are likely to hear about it. If the victim was friendly with other hags, those responsible for her death might find themselves the target of retaliation. If the victim died while owing favors to another hag, that hag sees her killers as now responsible for the dead hag's debts. If the victim was unpopular, or if other hags were indebted to her, and thus are happy to see her go, her killers might receive relatively cordial treatment from those other hags instead. Every hag has a particular status relative to others of her kind, and to hags of all sorts, based on age, abilities, influence, alliances, and experience, and is aware of her place, though not necessarily satisfied with it. The few grandmothers sit at the top of the hierarchy. A large number of aunties are beneath that, and all other hags vie for prominence in a chaotic pecking order that no mortal can truly figure out. A hag that is known to associate with an auntie has a higher status than a similarly powerful hag without such a connection, and a young hag born of a grandmother begins her existence already benefiting from a greater measure of respect and status. Hags don't like each other, but they abide by an ageless code of conduct. Hags announce their presence before crossing into another hag's territory, bring gifts when entering another hag's dwelling, and break no oaths given to other hags, as long as the oath isn't given with fingers crossed. Some humanoids make the mistake of thinking that the hag's rules of conduct apply to all creatures. When confronted by such an individual, a hag might find it amusing to string the fool along for a while before teaching it a permanent lesson. To a hag, the thought of sharing her home with other creatures, even other hags, is disgusting. She has nothing but dislike or disdain for anyone other than herself, and she loves being alone. That's the ordinary state of affairs. But when a group of hags have a common goal, where they seek greater power to combat a formidable threat, they suppress their basic nature and come together to do their work. The result is a coven. They say that things come in threes: good things, bad things, strange things. Hags and purveyors of witchcraft embrace the rule of three, as it is called. A coven has 3 members. They believe that good or evil magic returns upon its source threefold, and the casting of many spells requires the same words chanted 3 times. Being part of a coven gives each individual hag more magic and spellcasting ability, and to her these benefits offset the inconvenience and bickering that goes with living and working with other hags. If a member of a coven is killed and the surviving members intend to keep the group from dissolving, they immediately attempt to recruit a replacement. This process involves each prospective member committing cruel acts, with the aim of impressing the remaining coven members. Adventurers who slay only one member of a coven might deal a blow to it in the short term, but later on the surrounding region is racked with plagues, curses, and other disasters as the applicants attempt to outdo one another. Because both the Seelie Court and Unseelie Court appreciate and revere true beauty among the Fae, hags are almost never found in either place. The Summer Queen and the Queen of Air and Darkness recognize that hags have valuable knowledge and impressive magic, but they cannot abide the stain on the beauty of their surroundings, so most hags are excluded from both courts. The rare few accepted as courtiers are either so influential that their entry can't be refused, or young and humble enough to be willing to use magic to put on a prettier appearance. Other hags aren't upset by their exclusion. They like to be left alone to their own schemes, not constrained by a Fae Queen's whims, and to be able to talk out of both sides of their mouths. Hags dwell in the most desolate locales: boot-sucking fens, mist-shrouded moors, howling mountain passes, dark and twisted woods, bleak moors, storm-lashed seacoasts, and foreboding tundras. In these lonesome places, hags twist Feywild magic to create eerie homes that suit their wicked sense of humor and unsettling aesthetics. In time, the landscape around a hag's lair reflects the creature's noxiousness, such that the land itself can attack and kill trespassers. Trees twisted by darkness attack passerbys, while vines snake through the undergrowth to snare and drag off creatures one at a time. Foul stinking fogs turn the air to poison and conceal pools of quicksand and sinkholes that consume unwary wanderers. Many hags settle in place where the barriers between the mortal world and the Feywild are thin, making it easy for them to interact and bargain with creatures of both realms. Other popular choices are a place where the ambient energy augments certain kinds of magic, a site related to death such as a burial ground, and within a ring of fallen standing stones that still resonate with ancient power. In order to facilitate bargaining with mortals, the home must be near enough to a populated area that it attracts occasional visitors, but not so close that a community would see the hag's presence as a threat and try to defeat her or drive her off. A hag always has an escape plan in case ambitious do-gooders try to turn her home into her final resting place. If she is outmatched or wants to vacate her lair quickly for some other reason, she uses a mix of her innate spellcasting, rare magic, guile, and the assistance of minions to get away. Most hags have 3 plans prepared, one for general threats and 2 others for specific likely scenarios, such as they've set the house on fire or a necromancer with undead are attacking. If a hag is forced to resort to such measures, she immediately begins to plot her retaliation against those that caused her to flee. Like a vampire or a demon, a hag has a long life over which to exact her vengeance, and no dish of revenge is sweeter than one served cold and to the next 3 generations of her enemy's family. Much of a hag's treasure is strewn among all the clutter in her lair, making it difficult for intruders to quickly identify all the items that have use or value. But the hag knows what and where everything is. Every hag is infallible when it comes to keeping track of her treasures and other possessions. Her organization and labeling, if such a system exists, is designed to foil thieves and serve as a final vexing puzzle for anyone who tries to make use of an item without her consent. A hag's treasure, like a gift from a fey being, should be doubted and even feared rather than simply being scooped up and carted away. Treasure seekers are likely to fare better if they consider a hag's booty to be trapped, exercising caution rather than giving in to greed or curiosity. Manipulating a container or other item without knowing what's inside or what it does, or without knowing the proper password or technique, is likely to be very dangerous. At best, whatever was held in a container merely escapes or dissipates. At worst, just about anything can happen, none of it good.
Vexia trembled with a blend of terror and fury she had never experienced before. She attempted to return to her lair, where she had the means of breaking the curse that had been placed upon her, but her servants did not recognize her, and instead of groveling before their mistress, they tried to capture her instead. She barely managed to escape and fled to the forest's northern edge. There she plotted and planned her revenge. This would not be the end. All she needed was an opportunity to free herself from the Hag Sister's magic. If she could get someone else to go into her lair and bring out a special brew she had hidden in her laboratory, she could then restore her powers and rain down vengeance upon her former sisters. And as a plan began to form in her mind, Vexia began to cackle.
There are 5 common types of hags, each of which prefers a particular environment and have their own preferred methods of spreading misery. Annis hags live in mountains or hills. The terrain is easy for them to navigate because they are the most physically capable hags. Even with her hunched posture, an Annis hag is as tall as an ogre. Her skin is bruised blue or black, and her claws are like rusty blades. Annis hags love tormenting the weak and fearful, and seeing others feel fear. Ver hags live in wintry lands, favoring snow-covered mountain peaks. They are gaunt, have blue-white skin, white hair, and are known for their gray wooden staffs that give them access to extraordinary ice magic. Ver hags love seeing mortals freeze to death, and have little if any room in their hearts for kin and community. Green hags inhabit dismal forests, swamps, and moors. A green hag's body, whether broad, narrow, fat, or thin, is topped with a tangled mane of hair. A green hag thrives on creating despair and tragedy in the lives of her victims, using her skill with illusion magic to help in this goal. Destroying the hopes of others brings her unbridled joy. Night hags have left behind the world of the Fae to roam the lower planes. They have dark blue or purple-black skin, with white or light-colored eyes and thin, curved horns. A night hag is at least as tall as a human, and most are stout or have a medium build rather than being thin or emaciated. Night hags enjoy corrupting the dreams of good people, compromising the ideals of their victims to get them to eventually perform evil acts. Then, when a victim dies, the hag can harvest its soul and bring it to Hades. Sea hags live underwater or on the shore, favoring bleak and despoiled places. They have pale skin like that of a fish covered in scales, with glassy dead eyes and hair like lank seaweed. Sea hags are emaciated, but one might be tall or short, frail or large-boned. A sea hag hates beauty in any form and seeks to attack, deface, or corrupt it, so it has the opposite effect on its viewers. One is more likely to defile the inspiring statue in a town square, making it into a symbol of fear and sorrow, than to destroy it outright.
After Vexia's cursing and banishment, the success and contentment of the new Coven was short-lived. Both Magelrack and Thessingthorn claimed to be qualified to pick up where Vexia left off, and they began ordering Hoopshay around. Hoopshay, Vexia's replacement, did not react well to this, and the Coven erupted into a fury of fits, fists, and shrieks. The fight ended with each hag leaving, vowing to get back at the others, and thus the Coven was broken, and a new time of peace was brought to Semberholm, for a time. As the adventurers marched down the road known as Moonsea Ride, the figure of a very beautiful young woman with long, flowing green-tinged hair set with flowers stepped out onto the road. Her beauty was undeniable. Her smile would shame the sun on a clear day in Flame Rule.
Good travelers, I am Willori, a daughter of these forests. I believe you would call me a nymph. Please forgive my boldness in calling out to you, for I am troubled. You see, one of my sisters is very ill. She was cursed by a horrible witch that lives in the forest to the south, and I fear that she may die unless the curse is broken. In truth, I believe that you may be my only hope in freeing my sister from her curse. Oh, if you could only travel to the witch's lair and get the antidote, I would be forever in your debt.
This has been D&D Legends and Lore. Thanks so much for listening or watching on your platform of choice. If you enjoyed the episode, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Also, consider leaving us a review, especially on Apple Podcasts. It really helps others find the show. If you'd like to support us more directly, check out our Patreon or channel memberships on YouTube. There, you'll also find ad-free early episodes, as well as live play and third-party D&D content. Links, as always, are in the description. Lastly, we wanted to give a big thank you to our new video editor, Sean, aka The Unhumble Bard. You can check him out over on his YouTube channel, The Unhumble Bard. With that, thank you for listening, and happy adventuring.